Okay, so I'm working on putting together the solution manual for this worksheet for Unit 7, and I'll give you a quick heads up on how exactly to get started with the actual filling out of the HR diagram itself. So I have on my screen, on one side, the list of bright stars, and on the other side, the HR diagram itself, so you should have this printed out in front of you, or if you're working on it digitally like I am, either way works as long as in the end you have something to present. So as you can see, I've already started placing a few of the stars on the HR diagram right here with these blue dots that represent the first four of the stars in the bright stars list. Now, how I go about determining where exactly they're located, I'm looking at the spectral type. So for example, in the case of the sun, which I have momentarily skipped, I'm going to be putting that last on the entire HR diagram so that it's in a different color and it's easy to spot out. But in the case of the sun, for example, if I were to go ahead and place it on my HR diagram right now, it has a spectral type of G2 and a luminosity of exactly 1.00. So if I take one of the dots that I already have on here, I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste it. And I'll zoom in a little bit on the actual HR diagram so it's a little easier to figure out exactly where it's going to go. So let's change the color of this particular dot right here that we're working on so that it's a little easier to follow and track it. So I will format the shape and give it a quick solid fill of yellow and a line of, orange or whatever it is, just to make it pop out a little bit more. So here we have our little yellow dot. If we zoom in a little bit more, we can still see it selected right there. And that's going to be the dot that represents the placement of the sun on our HR diagram. So zooming back out just to get a sense of exactly where it should go, we can see that the sun is a type G2 star. So here we can see from the list, it's type G2. And the luminosity, like I mentioned a little bit ago, was exactly 1.00. So I'm going to go into the G column right here, which is this column on my HR diagram. And specifically, the line I want to follow is that first blue line from the left. So this line right here that I have the mouse hovering over, that's the G2 line for the sun. So following that line up, I'm going to go as far as I need to get so that I can move this yellow dot that I had into the intersection of that G2 line and the one on the luminosity axis. So this star, the sun, is going to be placed right there between the G2 and 1 luminosity lines. So let's continue on and add a few more of these dots just to get a sense of exactly how this is all supposed to be done. So the next one that I'll go ahead and start off with is Achernar. So Achernar is a B3 type star and it has a luminosity of 690. So this is one of the stars on my bright stars list. So I'm just going to go ahead and use, again, one of the blue dots in here. I'm not going to reformat it into a different color. It's going to stay blue, so we're just going to work with it. And let's go ahead and find the line, the vertical line for the B3. So I know that this column right here, this one right here is my B column. And if this line right here is my B2 line and this is my B4 line, as we can see at the top over here, B3 is somewhere in the middle of these two lines. But now exactly how high up or down between those lines do I go to place this particular dot? So it's here somewhere, but now I need to figure out the luminosity. So I'm going to look at the luminosity axis on the right side of my graph. And for a luminosity of 690, like is the case for Achernar, 690, excuse you, what are you doing? Going back over here to this row of information. 690 for the luminosity will be somewhere in this realm right here. So zooming in a little bit, we can actually focus on the hundreds part of the luminosity axis. So this main line right here is the 100 luminosity. The next horizontal line above it is 200 and then 300, and you continue onwards into 400, 500, 600 is this one right here. So I can't click on it, unfortunately, but it's the one that my mouse is hovering over just right there. So I'm going to go over and follow that line and bring this dot to sit right there where you have the B3 imaginary line in between vertically and the luminosity of 600. But now our luminosity in this case is 690, so we're just going to scoot it up a little bit and put it somewhere in between the line we originally were at and the one just above it. And we'll continue this for the entirety of the list of bright stars and for the list of nearby stars. And that way we'll eventually get a whole bunch of dots on the HR diagram itself right there. So hopefully this has been a insightful set of instructions. It's not a lot to work with right now, but at least you can get started with it. And if you still have any questions about it, please feel free to reach out to me with any of your questions.